بدأت صفارة البدء. Assalamu alaikum. So today we continue our course on data abstraction object-oriented programming. This is the second week of review. We would like to finish the review of C++. يلا بدينا. We would like to finish the review on C++ before the holiday. So this week I would like to finish the review of C++, so we can start after the holiday. We can start the object-oriented programming, which is the main topic of this course. I think the holiday is only Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, so we'll have Wednesday. I'm not sure if everyone will be back, so I'll make review for the quiz, which will be the following week in March. Okay? Review. Myself, I will do review, and tutorial also will do review, so as not to take new topics if many people are absent, taking the whole week off. And then we'll have a quiz after everyone. I'm sure everyone will be back on March, yes. So it will cover review only. So then we can have نبدأ صفحة بيضاء طاهرة. Two-dimensional arrays is the last topic where I stopped last week, and I found that you are not very confident, لم تكونوا واثقين about two-dimensional arrays. So this is a quick recap, إعادة تذكرة. Two-dimensional array, يلا. Two-dimensional array, or as it is called in mathematics, a matrix, is considered in C++ as an array of arrays, as I said. So an array, every element of which is an array. So it's an array of rows. Every element is a row. This is the first row, is the first element in the outer array, and the second row is the second element in the outer array, and each element in this array is an array in itself. It has elements, so it is declared the same way you declare one-dimensional arrays. First, the type of each element, because all the elements in all the rows and all the columns should be the same type. And then the name of the array, I will call it M, standing for matrix. And then the number of rows, and then the number of columns. In this order, rows first and then columns. And we also saw how to initialize القيم الأولية, put initial values in the array. And because it is an array of arrays, so this is why we put our comma-separated list. This is the opening brace, or curly bracket. And this is the closing brace of the big matrix, okay? And the elements of which are themselves في حد ذاتهم arrays. This is the first array, which is the first row in the big array, in the matrix, and this is the second row or the second array in the matrix. And this is how we initialize. And how do we access the elements? كيف يمكن الوصول للelements by reading or writing, سواء بالقراءة أو الكتابة, using the indices, row index, column index, which means that row 0, column 1, where is row 0? Here. Where is column 1? Here. Where is the element at the intersection? Number 2, or value 2. So this is the value 2. And similarly, 1 and 2, row number 1, column number 2, at the intersection I can find the element 8. And then to process all the elements of a matrix, we need nested loops. Nested loops means a loop within another loop, a loop inside another loop. Because what is the meaning of nest in English? Do you know? لا شبكة نت بدون اس. ايوه عش العصافير. العش بيعمل ايه؟ بيحوط على الكتاكيت. So here it means that we have an outer loop that is covering the inner loop. This is why they call it nested. One loop inside the big loop. So the outer loop is acting as the nest for the inner loop. طيب, which means that nested loop means that the inside loop, let me do it in another color, the inside loop is repeated for as many times as the outer loop says. For example, the outer loop says 2 times repetition. It means we perform the inner loop 3 times and then we perform the inner loop another time 3 times. So the total number of elements is how many? 6. 2 times 3. There is a mistake here. I will try to remove it in the next on the Moodle M1, because last week lecture it was M1. Now I changed the name. It is M. So this one should be M.
See out within the loop. What about?
Where is the C out? We have 2 C outs. Okay. We have a C out inside the inner loop. داخل العش. So this is repeated 6 times. But we have another C out outside the inner loop but inside the outer loop. خارج اللوب الداخلية لكن داخل اللوب الخارجية. How many times is the outer C out repeated? 2 times only. So this one is repeat 2 times. This is very important to notice. It looks easy when I am showing now, but on the exam, maybe it can. This one is repeated how many times? Repeat? Yes. How did 3 and then another 3. So I will write it like this: 2 times 3, 2 outer and 3 inner, equals 6 times. Did I answer your question? What did I do here with blue? What I put in the blue is the body of the outer loop. The body of the outer loop repeats the inner loop and the C out 2 times. واضح؟ So yes.
يعني أنت قصدك إنه راح تسوي الفور الأولية ويطلع تسوي الإند لاين.
Yes, it will.
الفور الثانية وتسوي الإند لاين.
Yes, for loop, end line, and then repeat again, for loop, end line. But it happens that the for loop is in itself 3 repetitions, 3 C outs. Passing arrays to functions. How do you pass an array to a function? This is the function declaration, function definition. Function definition comes on top. Okay. And then this is the function call. Where is the function call? When you use the name of the function inside another function. So this is what we call the function call. We start by declaring an array. This is the array declaration. Array declaration, very simple. 5 elements, 1 dimensional. What does the array declaration do? What does the array declaration do? It stores, it saves an area in memory just enough to store 5 elements. The first of which is 7, the second is 2, 4, 1, 5. Okay? So 5 ints. This is saved in the memory. In the memory. خلاص? We'll study the different parts of memory, but I think this is saved in the stack. Stack or data segment, I will check. So this is saved somewhere in memory, okay? 5 ints. How big is 5 ints? One int is 4 bytes, 4 bytes, 4 bytes, 4 bytes. So the whole is 20 bytes. 5 ints or 20 bytes. This is the size of the array. And this is what we know inside the main function. Inside the main function, we know that we have 20 bytes reserved for a variable named y. اسمه y. And then we call the function. When we call the function, we go here. We jump to this location. Okay. When we jump to this location, what happens to the y? The y is copied. This is what we assume. نتوقع. But this is not what happens actually here. And the 5, where does the 5 go? Size. But is this exactly what happens? No. This is not exactly what happens. The 5 is copied into size. This is correct. Because it's a small number. So it doesn't affect, لن يؤثر on the efficiency, كفاءة the program to make another copy of the 5 here. So we have one copy here in the main and another copy in size. But as I previously said, but let me reiterate or أعيد هذا الكلام. Y is not copied into X.
But there is no answer.
Because it's array.
لا.
There is no reference.
ما فيش reference, but still X is a reference to Y. This is the point. For arrays, even though you don't have reference, X is still a reference to Y. Why does it work like this in C++? Because if you copy the entire array, then you have 2 copies. 20 bytes in main and 20 bytes in X. No problem, 20 bytes is not a lot. But what if Y was very big? تعداد إحصائيات سكان الكويت in one array. You have millions. It is not efficient, ليس من الكفاءة, to make copy of arrays both in the calling function and the called function. So C++ and the C compilers, all compilers work this way. The only exception, الاستثناء الوحيد, for arrays are reference even if you don't put the ampersand. But other variables, if you want them to be a reference, then you should put the ampersand. If you don't want, then the default is copy inside the size. So, بس الارray. So I'm going to put it in the other color or same color ممكن. Both direction, okay? So actually X is a pointer to Y. X is a pointer to the array. Pointer to the actual argument. يبقى الY بنسميه, what is the name of Y? Argument. That is inside the function call. What do we call it inside the function definition? Parameter. So the parameter is pointing back to the argument. Okay? Why? So that I don't duplicate, I don't waste space, I don't double the space, one copy in the array, in the function, and one copy in the main. How do I know this? How can I make sure this is true? كيف أتحقق من الكلام؟ يمكن دكتور نصاب. Size of, we studied last week the size of. Size of operator computes the size of a variable. So if you print cout size of y inside the main function, what will be the output? 20, y20, because it is 5 ints. Of course, on my machine, maybe on your machine can be different. And how about inside the function? If you see out inside the function size of x, x is a pointer to y, it's not a copy of the whole array. So in that case, it is going to print 8. 8, as we will study in 2 minutes, is the size needed in memory to store the address of another variable, which is the size of a pointer. So x contains the address of what do I mean by array? I want to be more precise. بصورة أدق. Address of array. Is this the address of the array? Is this the address of array? The address of the array is the address of the first element in the array. العنصر الأول في الarray, which is the address of the y of 0, the 7, the address of 7. So x contains the address of y. And to be able to store the address, it should be a pointer. And the size of pointer in 64-bit machine is 8, but on 32-bit machine is 4 bytes. Okay, because 8 times 8 is 64, 4 times 8 is 32. خلاص واضح؟ لا مو واضح. إيه اللي مش واضح؟ السايز ولا
يعني ماشيين
size. طيب, why do you want the size to be 4?
For integer.
Because integer. But this is not an integer. It was very difficult for me. I put the next slide first or this slide before the next slide. يعني okay, we are going to see it in this lecture, okay? But x is not an int. X is a pointer to int. Pointer to int, it means that x contains the address of an int. And the address of a machine, the 64-bit machine, you need 8 bytes to store the address. عنوان الواي، عنوان السبن، مش السبن نفسه.
اوكي، الادرس البوينتر 4 بايت.
البوينتر 8 بايتس على 64-bit ماشين.
بس 20 سايز الحين 20
is the size of the ints that are stored in the array.
بس شنو نوع الماشين؟
هنا مش هتفرق كتير لأن there won't be a big difference because usually C decide that int is 4 bytes regardless of the type of the machine to be portable حتى يكون قابل للنقل. int will be 4 bytes in this course.
4 times. هذا المفروض يصير 4. يعني حتى اللي فوق المفروض يصير 4.
The one here, x is not an int. Is pointer to int. The pointer to int contains the address of the int. Let's see this in a minute, and then we will go back, okay? When we talk about the pointers. The purpose was to introduce pointers by talking about array. Array as an introduction, مدخل للpointers. I'm just worried about one thing, my battery. 46 minutes إن شاء الله. طيب. How do we pass 2D arrays to function? We have seen how to pass 1D array to function. Pointer to the first element. Same thing. 2D arrays also you pass pointer to the first element of the array. But because the array is 2-dimensional, so we must write empty brackets because it's a pointer. But then the number of columns is required to put in square brackets to know the size of each row. Each row, how many elements in each row, this is the number of columns. So let us compare. When we had 1-dimensional array, we pass, like we write it as pointer to the actual argument and empty square brackets. Why empty square brackets? Because it is just pointer to the first element. So we must also send the size because inside the array we don't know how many elements we have in the array. In the main we know how many elements we have in the array. It is here, it is 5. But in the function we don't know. So this is why we must pass the size along with بالإضافة إلى بجانب the pointer to the first element. Same thing in 2-dimensional arrays. When you pass a 2-dimensional array from main to the function, then those are the 2-dimensional arrays A, B, and C, we assume. A is first just the name, okay? And then now X is a pointer to A, Y is a pointer to B, Z is a pointer to C. What do we need? we need the first element in the array x, y, and z already satisfy this condition. يحققون الشرط x points to the first element. طيب, we also need the number of rows in the array. Number of rows is 2. We also need to know inside the function also the number of columns. So it is put as the second square brackets, and it must have the number of columns. Number of rows is not written because it is passed as a separate parameter. This is how we write the things into in C++ function definition. What does this function do? This function does a very simple operation. It adds the values in x and y, the corresponding values in x and y. كل عنصر في x على العنصر المقابل أو المناظر في y. Okay? And it stores the result in the corresponding element in z. So x, y, and z should be the same size. But after storing the value in z, the function ends. So the x and y and z are lost. No, this is not true, because x and y and z are arrays. Arrays mean that they are passed by reference. So z goes back to C. C is copied into Z, and then at the end Z goes back to C because it's a pointer. So the results, you don't need a return with arrays because the results are already stored in both parameter and actual argument. Yes, actual parameter or argument. Yes. So this is how we pass 2D arrays.
هذه three arrays ولا matrix واحد؟
3 matrices. Matrix X, matrix Y, matrix Z. All of them the same size. And we add each element in X with the corresponding element in Y, and we store in the corresponding element in Z.
والروز حق كل واحدة فيهم.
Same size. Rows is the same for all. If we had different size arrays, then we can have row X, row Y, row Z. Three parameters. If they were different, but if they are different size, you cannot add them. Yes. Here, because they are the same size, so I only need one value for row. طيب. خلاص guys. We reviewed arrays as much as I think you need for this course. And then we'll talk about pointers, which you already studied, but let's review that you know the basics of pointers. What are pointers? This is where we start to answer your questions. What are pointers? A pointer is a data type, like any other variable has a data type. So it's a variable used to store the address of a memory cell. So the value inside a pointer refers to تشير إلى an address of another area in memory, another cell, another location in memory. So this is how we declare. If you can imagine, نتخيل the model of the memory. Each cell has an address. Here I assumed, افترضت, that we have integer, and that each integer takes 4 bytes. So this is why the first element is stored, for example, at 1020, the second one 1024, and so on. There is a difference in space of 4 bytes because each int requires 4 bytes. So for example, if we have the value 100 stored at the location memory cell number 1024. Then if we have in another location the number 1024 and it is a pointer, it means that if you want to read the value stored in this pointer, first go to the location 1024, same, and then read the value stored there. Okay? How do we declare? كيف يتم تعريف؟ يعني I assume you already know this is why I go quickly. إذا اعتبرنا ده quickly أصلا. Int star p is the way طريقة declaration of a pointer. So when you write int star p, it means we are declaring a variable size 8 bytes. Why 8 bytes? So that there is enough space to store address of my 64-bit machine. And this variable contains an address that points to a memory location, and this memory location stores an int. And this is the address. And the address where I go, you will find an int. So I'm telling the pointer that when you go there, you will find an int. So this is why we put a int before, because the pointer must understand what it is pointing to. Type. When I say double star q, it means we are declaring a pointer q somewhere in memory that will hold the address and when of a variable. When I go there, I will find a double. خلاص؟ يعني عشان ما تروح ما تتفاجئش. طيب. This is how we declare. Let's look at a simple code and try to understand what it contains. We have a main program. Inshallah, I will upload the lecture and the code if you want to run it. We declare variable A in memory, somewhere in memory. Who decides the location of A? مين يحدد ال A تروح هنا ولا هنا ولا هناك؟ كومبايلر، الكومبايلر بالضبط. كلمة واحدة كفت ووفت. And I store 100. Where is the location? Anything. For example, can you read this number? What is 0x?
Hexadecimal.
Hexadecimal value, because we have very big values, so usually it is written 62FF18. So this is the memory location, the address where we have inside stored 100. And then we declare a pointer P. A pointer P somewhere else in memory. في مكان آخر من الميموري. P. What is the value here? 62FF18. How big is this number? 8 bytes. يعني it should be big enough. This is not 8 bytes, but كم بايت ده؟ 1 2 3 bytes, but we need enough space to store all the address of memory. What does this number represent? ماذا يمثل هذا الرقم؟ أيوة, the address where you will find the value 100 stored. How did we know this address? Using the address operator. And depending on the context, حسب السياق, has different meanings. So this is the address operator. It tells me where in memory A is stored, because I cannot know, a compiler tells me. And then if you see out A, it is going to print the value stored in A, which is 100. If you see out P, ممتاز. It is going to print the address of A. جميل. Next. طيب, now let us talk about the size of, so that we can understand the question that you have the answer to your question. This is my program. We declare in this program 3 variables. Variable number 1, the name is A. The second variable S. Third variable D. What is the type of A? So how many bytes? 4. Okay, and the value? 3. 4 bytes. S is a character. How big is a character? Only 1 byte is enough. D is double. 8 bytes. Now we are going to declare 3 pointers. Where are my 3 pointers? PA, PS, and PD. So int means an int. What is star? Star, it means a pointer. So PA is a pointer that points to an int, to an integer. طيب. And at initialization time, عند إعطاء القيمة الأولية, at declaration time, I will give it the address of A. And then same, PS points to the character. And it's a pointer that points to a character, and I make it point to S because it is a character. And similarly, I think the compiler will refuse to accept that you declare character pointer and can you make it point to int? I think it will be an error. Not sure, but I think it will be an error. And similarly, you declare a pointer to double, so you must make it point to double. PA contains the address of A. PS contains the address of S. PD contains the address of D. Now, what is the size of A, S, and D? 4, 1, and 8, no problem. And what is the address of the pointers? PA, PS, and PD. All the same size because they are all addresses. Any address in memory takes the same size. العنوان عنوان البريدي نفسه لازم يكون فيه القطعة والمنطقة والشارع لازم نفس السايز. اللي ساكن في البيت بقى ممكن يكون أي حاجة، ممكن واحد بروحه، ممكن يكون عيلة، ممكن يكون أصحاب ربع مع بعض، أي حاجة موجودة. But the address has the same size. خلاص؟ Did this answer your previous questions? طيب. Time out. We continue next week. Next tomorrow. يلا مع next day. يلا مع السلامة.